Aloha, boys and girls of the Laie Elementary School 3rd grades. I'd like to say that I'm honored to talk to you about the topic of growing up in Old Laie. And starting off, just to share a little bit of my background. My father and mother and 4 siblings, or 3 siblings, because one wasn't born yet, moved to Laie in 1955. And it was quite small then. The college just started. Most of our food items were brought in from Honolulu, but there were 2 little stores here in Laie because there's no shopping center. In other words, no Foodland and other stores. Not even a McDonald's back in those days. So 2 little stores was a Laie Cash and Carry and the Goose Plantation store. As far as transportation, of course we rode our bikes around Laie, but I remember going to Honolulu took quite a while because there were no tunnels back in those days. You had to travel up the Poly Highway, and you had to go by switchbacks, that means back and forth, and it took close to an hour and an hour and a half to get to Honolulu, depending on the traffic. And as far as what things we did for fun, I remember in school the boys would play a lot of marbles, and we would also play with our tops. You'd have a little round thing with a nail in it, and you just wind it up with a string, and you'd pile up all the tops in the middle, and you try to throw your top down and crack the others. See which one would crack the first one. And then we'd play a lot of simple games like you would still play today, dodgeball and hide and seek. School is a lot different. We had not as many buildings in Laie Elementary School. We're not even 1-2-story, just had 1 story. And I remember some of the teachers were pretty mean. I moved here when I was in the 5th grade. I think I was 9 or 10 years old, and we anytime we were talking to our friends in the class and not being good, teacher would walk around with a ruler in her hand, and she would tell us to stick out our hand, and she'd give us a little whack on her hand. Of course, you cannot do that today. And as far as jobs, people here in the community started working in at that time it was called the Church College of Hawaii. It's now BYU Hawaii. And the Polynesian Culture Center started a few years later. So that provided a lot of jobs, and more people moved in. And landmarks, it was very, as I mentioned, a small community back then, and people did not travel that much, and this place was very small compared to now. And for those of you who are interested, I'd like to encourage all of you students to look on there's 4 historical markers here in Laie that I know of. One close by Larry Au's house, which is by Sam's store. One by the side of our home on Nanilo Loop, the Goose store, where Goose store was. Another one by the chapel, Laie First Ward Chapel, up the road there. And up the top of the hill, there's a Lanihuli place, and there's another plaque there, historical marker. So I encourage all of you to take some time to visit these historical markers and read what's on them, so you can learn a little bit more about the history of Laie. And the temple, of course, is a tremendous landmark. And I recall when we first moved here, there wasn't a temple road. There was a winding road coming to the temple, and from the side road on, I think it was Puahi Street. But of course, several years later, they made the temple direct to Kamehameha Highway, and now you can see the ocean from the temple, which is a magnificent sight. So there's certainly been a lot of changes, and I'd like to encourage you, all of you, as young students, to study hard and work hard and do your very best. And always, when you can go back to the classroom, remember to be kind to each other and get along with everyone and share, and always be obedient to your parents and listen to your teacher. And I want to thank you all again for this opportunity to share a little bit about my background and about growing up here in Laie and going to the beach, going up into the hills, hiking and camping. I remember in those days we didn't have boogie boards, but we cut up little pieces of plywood and used them as boogie boards. And those were the fun days: swimming, fishing, boogie boarding, and doing all these things that you do now. I want to just thank you again and wish you a wonderful school year. Thank you very much.